Greetings, comrades and friends, and welcome to another exciting webinar where we will be engaging on the main and burning issues which are affecting the African working class today. My name is Mbali Ngwenda, and I am with Pan-Africanism Today, and we welcome you once again, and we are very happy that you have made time and the effort to be a part of today's conversation. Comrades, today we will be discussing the nationwide shutdown that we have seen unfolding in Kenya over the past few days. These demonstrations have shook not only Kenya, but the African continent as we witnessed progressive organizations advocate for the rejection of the Finance Bill of 2024. Our organizations and movements, comrades, have constantly defended our rights and improve our material living conditions. We have seen revolutionary forces in Kenya rise to the occasion and play a leading role in defining what the strategies and tactics should look like as we defend our lives and fight for our own dignity as the African working class. Comrade, we can never tolerate technical solutions to political problems on the African continent. Our struggles cannot be undermined as we continue to organize the working class majority. This is precisely the time to defend our struggles for a decent life for all, and not just for certain sections of society. It is indeed in the theater of struggle that we grow, and that we grow our movements that are a source of confidence for the working class and peasants on the African continent. Comrades, today we are joined by our dear comrade, Nicholas Mwangi from Ukombozi Library in Kenya, and he is going to help us get a better understanding of why Kenyans are rejecting the Finance Bill of 2024. Thank you so much, Comrade Nicholas, for making time to be with us today. We know that you are on the streets. We know that you are organizing. Thank you so much for making time to be with us. And we are really honored to have you on this platform. Comrade, I'm not going to waste any time. I will shoot right into the first question. and I just want to find out from the beginning, what could you update us on some of the recent developments that have unfolded with regards to this demonstrations and shutdowns that we have seen in the past few days?
Sure. Thank you, Comrade Mali, for having me. And if I could provide a quick update and a background to what transpired in the few days, is that on the 18th of this month, which was Tuesday, there was a nationwide demonstration, a protest that was in Nairobi, the county here in Kenya, which further expanded to other counties as well on Thursday of this week, because that is when there was a second sitting for the Finance Bill 2024. The protests was also prominently led by young people, and most Kenyans shared the same grievances against the increment of taxes on basic commodities amidst the already high cost of living, which is an economic crisis already. We're already in a very tough situation economically. But leading to the protest, there was a robust online campaign against the Finance Bill 2024 on social media. Platforms like Twitter, TikTok were very crucial and instrumental in mobilizing people to come out to the street, especially the young people, the Gen Z, were very crucial in using hashtags, videos, and even live discussions on Twitter that help in spreading the message prior to the protests on Tuesday. Further, in the last week or two, the contacts of members of parliaments in Kenya, their phone numbers were shared publicly, and in an attempt to put more pressure on them to reject that finance bill. It has punitive proposals on increasing taxation. The lobbying put great pressure on the government and members of parliament in response to the mounting pressure. President William Ruto and his party members announced some concessions on the finance bill just before the protest on Tuesday morning. Notably, they proposed reductions in the tax on oil and vehicles, among other things. However, these concessions were seen by many as insufficient and a tactical move to diffuse the protest, which had really started on a high note on Tuesday. So this skepticism, this doubt, and not giving into the concessions is what led to the further nationwide protest, now beyond Nairobi, on Thursday, which was yesterday, when they were having the second city to pass the bill, which unfortunately they did, using their majority in numbers in parliament. So it is also important to note that the Finance Bill 2023, the one last year, also faced significant opposition because it also increased taxes. It brought other new proposals that already are taking a toll on the ordinary citizen, the ordinary Kenyan who's trying to survive. And so this is an additional now Finance Bill 2024. This recurring dissatisfaction is a deeper issue with the government's neoliberal policies and their impact on the masses. So the passing of the Finance Bill 2024, despite widespread and legitimate public outcry, show, or rather, is a clear indication that the ruling party and the ruling political class and the elite is indifferent to the opinions and needs of the majority of public opinion. So it's a total disregard for majority opinion. It's not only an unfortunate, but also reveals a government that is highly disconnected from the people it is meant to serve. The outcry surrounding the Finance Bill 2024 is legitimate from the people of Kenya. It's a legitimate concern for those who are struggling on a daily basis. So it's not something light just to be thrown away the way the government has demonstrated. Because Kenyans from various sectors have voiced their concerns, highlighting the potential adverse impacts of the bill on their lives. So these concerns range from increased taxation and reduced public services to the increase of economic inequalities that we are witnessing now and we witnessed last year, sharpened by the last finance bill. So, and despite these reservations, the ruling class are still pushed forward with the bill, prioritizing their political agendas over public welfare, which is very unfortunate again. Because in a progressive democratic society, the government ought to act in the best interest of the people, taking into account their needs and opinions. However, the passage of the Finance Bill 2024 suggests otherwise. The government's decision to ignore it's unfortunate. The outcry was legitimate. It was loud. It caught the attention of everybody. It was overwhelming. So this indicates a lack of genuine concern for the people of Kenya views and a total disregard for democratic principles in which the majority should have the say.
Thank you so much, Comrade Nicholas, for giving us that much broader picture of what is actually going on in Kenya. And I think, as part of this conversation, something that I picked up that was quite interesting was that you mentioned that there was an online aspect to these demonstrations. So there was an online sort of campaigning or an online sort of mobilizing, which actually translated into people going into the streets, into people actually being part of the demonstrations. And I think this is the first time we've seen such. Usually, you don't have an online campaign translate into the direct participation of people on the streets. And I think this was very interesting that you have mentioned this as a character, of these demonstrations. But also, what I found interesting is that you're saying it's not the first time that people are, saying that we don't want a finance bill that's going to squeeze us. And, you said in 2023, there was similar types of demonstrations. And now 2024, we are seeing something again, which is coming up. And I think it's interesting that this is consistently that people are, speaking out against a financial bill that completely disregards their lives. So I want to ask if you could briefly just in a little more detail speak to us about this finance bill. What type of finance bill is it, and what are some of the measures, the specific measures, even if you mention a few, that you want to share with us that this government, this Ruto government, is trying to impose on the Kenyan people?
Sure. And I should have mentioned in my introduction that this was a very peaceful demonstration since the beginning of Tuesday till Thursday when it spread nationwide. Unfortunately, the peaceful protest was met by unnecessary force from the police. A lot of tear gas, water cannons, and arrests. Almost to 300 people were arrested on Tuesday alone. And on Thursday, unfortunately, a young man lost his life to this demonstration. So they used live ammunition, which again is unfortunate. But the Kenyan people, the Kenyan masses have reminded the government that it is a right to have peaceful demonstrations. It is enshrined on our constitution, which was fought for very hard. So there have been unfortunate scenes that have happened, but this was a very peaceful protest, and especially from the young people. There was no looting or such things, and it was not a chaotic protest. So yeah, the rejection of the proposed bill is rooted in its punitive measures on taxation, categorical, which affects the very core of the daily life for the average person. The bill's provisions are going to lead to significant prices increases in essential items that people use on a daily basis, grains, bread, essential items. There was a proposal for a 16% increment to all these, a VAT increment to essential goods. There was an eco levy that was very controversial. That was taxing a motor vehicle for usage. So the bill's provision are very draconian, least to say. So further, there was like the taxation of cooking oil. I've said bread, diapers, sanitary towels, electronics, financial services, even on digital credits, and even digital content creators who after lacking jobs, they have tried to find something useful and generate an income for themselves. And they have become real successful doing it. And so the government has proposed to tax it further. There was also a proposal last year that taxed them, and they were very angry about it. And it is one of the reasons why those who are using the Gen Zs who have been using TikTok came out strongly condemning such proposals. So in a nutshell, the bill seeks to amend various aspects of legislation also, including the Income Tax Act, the VAT Act, the Excise Duty, and the Levies Act, as well as other non-tax statutes. And this introduces or make a more burdensome tax regime. Since its inception in 2023, has been a burdensome tax regime to the very core of it. And because it has worsened the financial strain of its citizens, for many Kenyans who have not fully even recovered from the economic impact of COVID-19. You remember the COVID-19 pandemic wreaked havoc on the global economy, to which market economy did not have any answer to it or solution. And so as businesses were shut down in Nairobi, restaurants, jobs were lost and incomes reduced, leaving many families struggling to make ends meet. So the introduction of this bill will only compound these difficulties or even make it worse, because it makes essential goods and services even less affordable. The additional cost also will be felt mostly by lower income families, the most vulnerable, who the state should protect. But it does the opposite. So that was what was at the heart of these demonstrations: punitive taxation and overtaxation that are meant to worsen the condition of low income families and the most vulnerable. So this regressive impact of the tax changes is a primary driver of the widespread opposition to the bill. Furthermore, the bill is backed by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which confirms it as a neoliberal policy. And historically, the implementation of the IMF's ideas on how Kenya economy should be managed has led to the death of public service, job losses, and rapid inflation in our country. Because the IMF's historical approach to economic reform in the global south, especially, has often prioritized austerity measures and market liberalization that leads to adverse social and economic outcomes that are negative. So such a decline in the quality and accessibility of things like health in Kenya, education, public means, has been greatly affected because all of these have been commodified under their instructions, under their guidance, and these measures affect the most vulnerable. So this finance bill has a long historical root within the neoliberal framework. So it's not surprising that it was rejected, because historically their point of reference concerning neoliberal policies in Kenya and the structural adjustment programs of how they led to a decline of our economy and affected the most vulnerable. So this was just one of them, but at the heart of this demonstration was overtaxation on essential things, even healthcare, which is further commodified under this bill.
Thank you so much, Comrade Nicholas, for that detailed explanation as to what is the contents of this bill. And you've mentioned so much in terms of trying to amend legislation, trying to change, the tax sort of levies or the percentages of tax, the VAT, which is something that would affect people quite heavily, as you've put it, in terms of basic necessities, which every human being should have access to. And thank you again for putting that quite clearly, and also putting it quite clear that this was a peaceful protest. There was no ammunition on the side of demonstrators. There was no looting of whatsoever. But thank you again for putting that quite clearly. And I want to just find out from you, because I think, as you're saying, this has a historical component to it in terms of the resistance towards this type of draconian economic bill, or finance bill rather. What makes this this demonstration this year? What makes it so different from previous demonstrations against a finance bill? What makes this one so distinctive?
Sure, and definitely people will mention that this was a very different kind of demonstration, but it's also a culmination of different processes that have been carried out historically. Because the liberation struggle continues, and the roots for such kind of demonstrations are there. But this, again, was very different. One, because it had a very different demographic in terms of age, even in terms of gender, even in terms of class. And it involved the most young, in our society, the Gen Zs and also the millennials were part of it. Of course, through different organizations that were able to make the demonstration successful. But it's different because, unlike previous protests, which were typically led by the opposition and prominently by its charismatic leader, Raila Odinga. To an extent, this demonstration had some component of it emerging organically through online platforms, and popular initiative online issues also. So supported, of course, by different organizations in grassroots and even civil society. So there was the absence of perhaps a central figure or a de facto leader of this protest. Perhaps might have presented a challenge to the government, who found it difficult to suppress it because through their conventional means of compromise or bribery, the way they're able to mobilize the opposition leaders and have some concessions with them, and that has been the tradition for a long time. But to have such a scale of large scale protest initially was only done by the opposition political party and its leader. Even just last year, there was there were waves of protests led by the opposition. So this time it was not led by the opposition; it was led by young people. It was led by Kenyans. It had a component of different things that were not seen in other protests. Also, this protest, perhaps it is the first one that has utilized social media more than any other protest, because it became a major platform for mobilizing and sustaining the protest movement the entire time. And incredibly, it was able to turn the online activism, the online pressure into tangible on-ground actions, as you had mentioned. This is always a challenge, and there's always a heavy critique on online activism, and sometimes keyboard warriors, as the critique will call them. But this was very different. That indeed the numbers that were making noise, that were challenging the finance bill 2024 online, actually came to the streets. So that's another thing that made it different. Another remarkable aspect of this protest was, of course, was obviously the involvement of the young people, such a large number that has not been seen before. And of course, like I mentioned, they draw inspiration from the long and finished liberation struggles of our forefathers. And in a sense, it brought a renewed sense of purpose and continuity to the struggle and to the movement. So, further, I think what also stands out on this protest is that the young people involved in the protest also demonstrate having an understanding of political processes. They might not be, it might not be deep on how on every core issue, but there's there's a there's an understanding overall, because they're extending their activism beyond the streets. You know, they have already initiated campaigns to recall members of parliament who supported the contentious bill. You know, signaling a shift uh, in the way political protests and demonstrations have been done, because it's a very different approach. This proactive approach shows that the protests are not seen as an end in themselves, but rather as a means to achieve broader systemic change. And that's very important, because most protests have tended to end when the protests end, everything ends. But even during the protest, they already discussions, they already calculated. Okay, there's a good chance that this bill will be passed because of the majority the ruling party has in parliament. But what can be done after? And so there's already a campaign to use through the constitution that allows the people to recall their member of parliament. And so they plan to unleash this sword on everybody who supported that finance bill. So that's amazing in that sense. Further, another thing that was great about this demonstration, it was the solidarity among the working class and the working people, because the Thursday's demonstrations, you know, had business people who supported it initially. When demonstrations happen in Nairobi, most businesses close. But these businesses were hiding protesters when they were being chased, when they were given water, when they were being tear gassed. Yesterday, you had a team of doctors on standby to anybody who was injured, and they will attend to them. On Tuesday, there was a whole pool of lawyers who helped in putting more pressure to release protesters. So that kind of solidarity is also unique to this protest. But ultimately, what it shows is that this finance bill 2024 is the most unpopular thing to happen, because it cut across political spectrums and even class. So there was that unity of some sort when it came to that bill. And that pressure is continuing. There's momentum that is building towards demanding even more. This is just a start. Already, there's already campaign that is going to be launched to demand justice for the young man that was killed on the Thursday's protest. So the momentum will keep building. We'll see how it goes with the attempt to recall members of parliament. But this definitely signals a shift uh, towards a very different generation of people who are not apolitical as as it has been the nature. This now politics are very lively now that most people can resonate with what is happening and what is going and how they're going to be affected with this bill. So this is a building stage for even more great things, even more demands and on radical changes. Yes.
No, thank you again, Comrade Nicholas, for that picture. And I think what's striking about these demonstrations, I know you've explained about the composition, the class composition, the solidarity, but what's most striking is like you're saying, the participation of young people who usually you would in the past see them being apolitical, who would not participate in campaigns or protests or even opposing political processes. So I think it's striking because I know yourself and myself are aware that Africa is quickly becoming younger and younger. And, the age or the majority age of this continent continues to decline and become, below the age of 19. So it's encouraging when we see young people take an interest not just in political processes, but in also articulating certain positions in opposition to those processes. And I want to thank you again for making time to be with us, Comrade Nicholas. And I just want to ask then, do you have any closing remarks, anything that you would like to share with your comrades who are still on the ground, comrades who are still organizing, who are developing the further stages of this very important process that we've seen unfolding in Kenya?
Sure. The struggle is long. It's a protracted struggle. So commerce should not give up. Should continue to build on the momentum. But most importantly, is to even continue to study and analyze this kind of situations, and to better understand, when you're confronted with systemic issues, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with an issue for once and for all? It was amazing that they didn't give into the consensus that were earlier provided by the government. Instead, they demanded a total rejection of this finance bill in totality. So, and that is their approach when it comes to systemic issue. But a further study in terms of political education, will equip most in a better way to understand these issues, to understand the great history of resistance that Kenya has, you know, um, from the 1920s, up to where we are, that we have a long history of struggle and liberation, and that's the foundation to build upon. So that will be my message, that it is important to continue to participate in these struggles, but most importantly, continue to inform yourself with analysis, with what is happening on a daily basis, not only in Kenya or Africa, but also internationally, globally, because these things are not isolated. The bill has a IMF handwriting all over. So that's a global institution. So we must understand that kind of relationship. What does it mean? So it is important. All those questions, tough questions, must be asked, so that we can also progress in better ways.
Thank you again, leadership, for your time. Thank you again for your input. I don't think I can articulate any better what you've just mentioned, that, we need to continue studying, and continue sharpening our tools of analysis, so that we are also sharper activists. But again, this is a phenomenal time. We are seeing major shifts in politics. We are seeing huge shifts, especially on the ground. And I want to thank you again, Comrade Nicholas, for making time to be with us. And I also want to thank anyone who is joining us on this webinar for actually being here, being part of this conversation. And I also want to encourage you to continue having these conversations outside of spaces like these or platforms like these. It's only when you have these conversations in the taxis, in the kitchens, when you are doing the garden with your neighbors, whether you are in Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, South Africa, once we make political struggles a daily language that we use, a normal language that we use when we speak to, the working class on a daily basis, is actually when we are practicing the most genuine and organic type of internationalism. Is when a Zambian can understand the politics in Kenya, and South African can understand the politics in Ghana, and it's an everyday language. That's when we really are practicing internationalism better than anyone can on a daily basis. So thank you so much, comrades. Thank you for being with us. And let's continue having these conversations outside of this platform. Thank you so much.